All right, so let's just start off from the rip here. So Dynamite, I don't even know. That was March 26th, 2025. I believe it was in Minneapolis, right?
St. Paul.
Yeah.
St. Paul. Okay, I couldn't remember if it was in one of the Twin Cities or not. But so what did you guys think of the Dynamite overall?
I thought it was a decent show. Um, Few things I didn't like. Thought it was okay. Thought it was a mostly a build for the pay per view type of show because they had to do a lot because there's only at this point a week before the pay per view, and they only had a few matches announced, so they had to rush through a few things.
Yeah, I mostly agree. I thought um, it wasn't to my taste personally as a Dynamite. I thought the latter half was actually, I don't want to say surprisingly good because the only thing that I was actually really surprised about as far as quality wise was the women's four-way match, and that's just more because I'm not a big fan of the we're not a tag team, but we're going to tag together tag match because normally the chemistry is not there and there's a bunch of blown spots and all that kind of stuff. And I'd rather just watch an actual tag team in that position. So I didn't have high. I didn't think it was going to be bad, but you know, what I mean, it was way better than what I thought it was going to be. Is what I'm trying to say there. Um, and obviously, Mark Briscoe and Takeshita was a, a really, really good match. Easily, probably, I don't know if I would say the best TV match that AEW's had so far this year, but it's definitely in the top three, I'd say.
I
But I
felt
didn't do
much
it.
the same way. As a Dynamite in isolation, in a vacuum, it was a good show with some of the better wrestling that we've seen all year. But so far as the build for like this pay-per-view is concerned, it doesn't leave me like too excited going forward in terms of like what the directions coming out of this show are going forward.
I kind of feel the same way, and I didn't. There was a lot of stuff on the show that I didn't love. It's one of those things where I mean I got notes, so we'll go through it, kind of break down and talk about segment by segment or match by match, and what we liked and what we didn't from each one. So let's just start off the top. I thought the opening of going back to actually using pyro for the opening of the show, even though it was the fire and not like there was actually a bigger fire than that. And of course, it's Wednesday night. You know what that means because they don't always do that. So that's a classic AEW trope that I think that they should kind of get back to if they're trying to quote unquote restore the feeling. Um, then we had the Blake Christian video to explain that he was on a 7-win streak on ROH. Um, and they showed a couple highlights. And then, Omega came out, had some great pyro, looked like a god. Um, Personally, I thought the match was a little bit underwhelming, but that's more of I'm a giant Blake Christian fan. I think he's like really, really good at his job as far as like getting heat and being a great in-ring wrestler. I thought they were going to get a longer time, lot more time, and so I kind of just think I had higher expectations. It wasn't a bad match, um, but it's not going to go down as anything memorable. I thought there were a couple of fun, like Blake Christian got a shit in, so that was good. Kenny looked strong, so it was okay. You know what I mean? It was a solid 3-star match. Like nothing bad happened, nothing great. I don't know what you guys kind of thought about it.
I have loved Kenny's presentation in his return to AEW. I think he got like last night, for example, he got brand new Titantron. I think they've nailed the look with the lights, the spotlight, the fireworks. He's one of the only guys on the show that gets pyro, so he stands out as being a big deal, even if you don't know who the hell Kenny Omega is. From a presentation standpoint, they've absolutely nailed things. And the match itself, I was it was what it needed to be. Kenny Omega's matches versus anyone don't tend to be like outright squash matches. So he did give Blake Christian some offense. He did some selling of his stomach issues and whatnot. And yeah, put him away. So I thought this match was what it needed to be.
I agree with you on the presentation. I like the new Titantron, or I don't like to use the word Titantron for obvious reasons, the Vinceism of it. I like the new Tron, the video package or video that they had for him, his intro video. I'm glad they're going back to using Battle Cry, especially for television matches. I mean, we don't know like when they're going to be using it or when they're not, so that's just head canon as far as us assuming or me assuming. But I think Battle Cry for the average match is probably a much better intro theme than using whatever the new song is called. It's a little much. Like it's not a bad song. I like it for the Gabe Kidd Tokyo Dome entrance, but every other time they've used it so far, it hasn't hit the same thing for me, which is crazy because obviously Kenny is a god in Japan and has better matches, and I prefer his New Japan presentation, but something about Battle Cry just it's great. So I'm glad they went back to that.
Battle Cry, from just like a song standpoint, is one of the greatest theme songs in wrestling. And I would hope that his New Japan theme song, which for the Gabe Kid match, I agree, I liked, but for me it has to represent like a shift in the character or serve some sort of symbolic importance in terms of like Kenny Omega the wrestler. When this song is on, wrestles at a different intensity, a different level than he does when it's Battle Cry, for example. Like it should serve as a shift. Like when you use it for the Takeshita match, that felt important to me because it's like this is a guy that you haven't been able to beat. He's pinned you twice. It's your first singles championship match in a long, long, long time. So you play your big theme song. But yeah, if you can use it like that, I think it'd be good.
I completely agree with that. I kind of forgot about that. I kind of forgot about some of the background lore of the Takeshita match because they didn't quite tell it, and then in my opinion, I don't think they really presented Takeshita as a great international champion on television compared to some of the other international champions that we've had
I mean,
before.
that
He
tends to be
felt
the issue with AEW as a whole, right? Like we have to come up with a narrative for ourselves because they don't do a good job of telling us these.
I mean, yeah, you're 100% right, and also I would say it's a problem with them. It's interesting who they give the belts to try to make, and then sometimes who they're just who gets what I can kind of consider extended transitional champion treatment. It's like Tony Khan knows he doesn't want hot potatoes belt around or make someone look bad. So what he does is just put the belt on them and then just kind of parks the belt on them and doesn't really do anything. Granted, Takeshita did have a bunch of matches in Japan and a couple on American Indies for the title, which were actually some really good matches. It's just I don't know. I feel weird because that's how I want the international belts to be presented. I want it to have that meaning and it to be a cross promotional belt that kind of goes different places. So it's weird to complain about something happening that you want to happen. I'm just upset in not upset is the wrong word. That's way too nerdy. I would have preferred the context of the way the belt has historically been presented to give Takeshita more television matches because I think Takeshita is one of the best wrestlers in the world, and there was a lot of people on the roster like randomly that I would have been like, man, it would have been cool to see this guy wrestle randomly, like him versus Roddy. You know what I mean? Him versus I'm trying to think of someone random, like him versus Nick Wayne or something randomly. Just a couple random television matches before we got to him versus Kenny to heat him up on television. Would have been nice.
Yeah, I thought the match was what it needed to be. I thought Blake Christian got to heal it up just enough. It was more so to showcase him to get to the next thing. As far as Takesha, I don't think he didn't they didn't present him well enough within the company in terms of like title defense and as a dominant champ to be like this insurmountable thing that Kenny needed to overcome. They tried to give him a few matches before Kenny beat him, but like before that, he hadn't done much within the company, like on TV. So but they moved on from that. As I said, I thought the match was exactly what it needed to be. They got to the speedball and ricochet thing where it was kind of awkward because of the way it was laid out. Speedball's not a great talker, so he talked like a video game character, and then he was like pausing every third word. Then you had the pre-tape with Ricochet that was awkward. So you know, we'll get to another awkward thing a little later in the show, but yeah, I thought it was awkward, but I guess it served its purpose.
I also thought it was extremely awkward. I have in my notes. Um, I well, the first thing that when Kenny Omega got the mic, one of the first things he says is, I have it in quotes, "I don't get to wrestle every week as like I would like to," and I just started laughing. I was like, "Oh, Kenny's spicy tonight." Um, so he said that, and I was like, "I agree, Kenny. I wish you would get to wrestle with that belt every week too, and showcase it like many other international champions have." Again, even though we know that Kenny's not going to be a transitional champion because I think we're all in agreement here that Kenny's probably going to beat Okada. Not probably. Kenny's going to beat Okada for the Continental title, and they're going to unify them at All In. But yeah, the promo was awkward. To your point, Mike Bailey does have a weird cadence when he speaks. I don't know how much of that is because he's French Canadian and English is a second language, and he wants to speak. He speaks very clear, like he speaks very very clear English. But it could be a case of one of those things where maybe he speaks very clear, but he has to think about what he's saying in English still. So I don't know because I've only watched the speed vlog a couple times, and then I don't know if I've ever seen him cut a live promo in TNA ever. And I'm not a big TNA watcher, but I would pop in for Mike Bailey matches. But yeah, it was an awkward exchange. I think it was Mike Bailey's first time to at least ever, even if he has cut promos in TNA, that was his first time to cut a promo in front of a crowd that big for sure. You know what I mean? When he was like, "Hello, Kenny Omega," and there was like that awkward pause, and Kenny's like, "Hi, Mike Bailey." It was very funny to me, just because it was. Then the Ricochet thing, to your point, Dougie, was so weird because obviously the exchange between Kenny Omega and Speedball wasn't scripted, and that was just them riffing on the square. But the problem is the Ricochet was a pre-tape. So when they cut to Ricochet after they've already started talking, like Ricochet, it comes out of fucking nowhere, and then Ricochet just starts rambling on about shit that has nothing to do with what they're talking about, and then Kenny's got to respond to the pre-tape, or he thinks he's got to, and then he's like, "Oh wait, the feed's been cut. Oh, okay." And then he goes back to Mike Bailey, and I felt like Kenny's energy changed after the pre-tape. Like I felt like maybe this is just because I felt it was weird, but I felt like he got more aggressive with Mike Bailey at that moment. Um, and I know Mike Bailey said he was going to kick his head off, but I thought that was a good little exchange first. I thought Mike Bailey, for someone who doesn't get live mic time, especially not in front of a crowd, I thought, he didn't do great, but I don't think he did bad. I think the story that they tried to tell in that very short time segment there was, about him kind of chasing Kenny Omega, not like not literally, but kind of always being in his footsteps. He got that point across. So I thought that's kind of how I would have booked Mike Bailey in general. Like let's sidebar that and talk about Mike Bailey for a second. That's how I think they're kind of doing him a disservice by making him the third most important person in his debut pay-per-view match, because he's obviously going to eat the pin, right? So it's like, why did you like not that I think Mike Bailey's going to be like the guy or anything, but Mike Bailey's somebody who you could put the TNT title on and have like weekly television matches with, right, and showcase matches with. He's somebody who is willing to lose. Um, so I don't understand his booking because if I've seen Mike Bailey on a WrestleMania weekend have like 6 matches in like 3 days, so I know and they were all great. So I know he's durable. So I mean, I would have had him come out. I would have done the international tournament that they did, but I would have done it in a manner to where like Speedball had to go through everybody, right? He would have won on in the quarter, then in the semi, and then he would have won in the final. That way he would have gotten 3 matches because that's how much time they had before the pay per view. That way you could get a good highlight of how good of a fucking wrestler Mike Bailey is, and you know. So I just it's just weird to me that you'd bring him in this way and not really highlight him. He's only had one singles match so far, and like you could have at least been having him have matches on Collision, right? Like there's no reason why not. So it just kind of feels like they've already quote unquote fumbled Mike Bailey, in my opinion. But that could just be the fact that I'm a speedball mark. I don't know if you guys kind of agree with that about they could have done a better job with his presentation already.
If you're
Yeah.
someone who doesn't know, go ahead, Dougie.
No, I was your echo what you were about to say. If you're somebody who doesn't know Speedball, they haven't done a good job of telling you that he's like a real threat in this. He's won one match and is a double pin in the second match to get to this match. He hasn't really done much to warrant a the thought that he's gonna win this match. He beat Beast Mortos, I believe, who he almost never wins. So it's like he hasn't beaten anyone credible. So they haven't done a good job of, as I said, making them feel like a threat at all.
It's to that point. Who did he pin in the 4-way match? Did he pin Orange or did Ricochet pin
Mark
Orange?
They
Mark
both pinned
Davis,
Mark Davis.
they both hit Mark Davis,
Okay, that's right. That's right. That's what it was. Okay, that I
who
hated that.
lost in like 4 minutes in a match we'll talk about in a little bit later.
Oh my god, yeah. And he looked great in that 4-way match, right? Like and that was another thing too. Is the way that 4-way match was structured was to like make Mark Davis look like a monster, and then yeah, we'll get to that. So yeah, if you don't know who Mike Bailey is, which is probably a lot of the new AEW audience, and I say new AEW audience because I don't feel that the audience that is watching the product today is the same audience that was around in 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022. I feel like a lot of them came in probably at the latter end of 2022 or 2023, and have they've been riding out since. So they probably don't know who Mike Bailey is, and they don't know that he's probably arguably top 10 wrestler in the world. You know what I mean? So it's a damn shame because I think a Speedball Kenny Omega match on paper that's a Dave Meltzer 5-star match like on paper easy like so I feel like we're kind of getting deprived of that by putting Ricochet in there, and that's not saying it's going to be a bad match because it can't be a bad match with those guys, but it's not going to hit as the way it should, or it's not going to highlight Mike Bailey as it could, because like the story of Mike Bailey hitting Ultimate Weapon on Kenny's diverticulitis gut, like would have been just Kenny would have sold it amazingly. It would have been a great match, but now Ricochet is going to be yucking it up in there, and like the crowd's going to be chanting bald, and so it just automatically kind of makes it a less serious match.
Going back to the promo, when it was happening, the first thought I had was like, because a lot of the discussion in recent time about AEW has been like, do they have production meetings, and do they need? If they don't, do they need production meetings? So this promo segment felt unrehearsed. It felt like no one knew what the message was going to be that they were going to convey, and no one had seen on Dynamite. So like the responses were both awkward. And the Speedball Mike Bailey thing, like you're talking about him hitting like Ultimate Weapon on Kenny Omega. So like when he was saying like, I won't hesitate, I thought he was leading up to saying like, I won't hesitate to fucking drop my knees on your fucking stomach. But he said I'm gonna take your head off. So like, just that little bit of difference, I felt like I don't know, it surprised me as well because like you would think that would be the story of the match, but like now it looks like it's gonna be different.
Well, and to piggyback on your point there, when Speedball had his match against Mortos, I think it was, they were putting. I believe it was the match during with Mortos. They were putting over the Ultimate Weapon. The whole commentary, right? They were talking about how like deadly of a move it was, and all that kind of shit. And then it's like, so it's one of those things where it's like there was a big story, and if you watch the speed vlog, there's a big story to tell about it. He calls it the ultimate weapon because he's also a Final Fantasy nerd. He's from Canada. He wrestled in DDT. He also has the history of Takeshita as this Kenny Omega. He went to PWG like Omega did. I mean, there was a way better story there, and to highlight this guy, and not just like make it like a moves match that the spot fest quote unquote that Dave Meltzer is gonna love. But there was a way to tell a good story there, and yeah, man, they
So yeah,
didn't
after this
they
after
did.
this first
Oh, sorry.
promo segment, no, like just again, like to echo your point, after this promo segment, you don't get any of that story. Like Speedball very briefly mentions that he idolizes Kenny Omega, but you don't get any of the other lore in terms of their history or like Speedball's history and how much of an influence Kenny Omega has had on his career, both from like um their upbringing to the moves, video game background, all that stuff. And so, um, tie it up. If you don't know who Speedball is, you don't care much more about this match now than you did 2 weeks ago. And so far as this overall build is concerned, there's not much. There's no heat to this match. There's no reason as to why it's happening beyond the fact that it's coming out of a tournament. And so, yeah, that's what it is.
Yeah, the point I was actually making there was they put over the ultimate weapon very hard on the match, and then Speedball says, "I'm going to kick your head off," right? Like why are you putting over the ultimate weapon when he's not going to hit the ultimate weapon? Then it's not going to be he hasn't hit it yet, right? So it's not going to be it hasn't. They're putting over a move that he hasn't hit, that he didn't hit, and that he's now potentially not going to hit in the story in the match. And if he does, like who's going to remember it because they put it over for 3 minutes in the Beast Mortos match. So that's something again where the production meeting could have come in, like, hey, this is the story we're trying to tell here between these two dudes, like, or like, hey, somebody like a continuity person who might have watched the show live or something, because something they should have, in my opinion, someone's job should be to like watch the show on broadcast either after it or live and like take notes. That way they can do things like, oh, they put over this on commentary, so like we need to make that
Did, A- did
yeah,
AEW
something.
not hire someone to do that exact job a year and a half ago?
I believe they did. Mr. Will Washington, I believe, was what he was initially hired for, but it seems like he's more of a creative role. But again, that's one of those things where, from my understanding, because we don't know who does what creative, and I would love to know. But from my perspective, it seems like the creative that I think Will Washington is attached to is some of the creative that I actually think is some of the better creative. So I don't want to like say anything negative because like I don't necessarily don't want him to be in the room. But yeah, if Will Washington's not going to be, and that's more of a structural thing. So like, and no one's saying anything bad about Washington. Like someone that if someone should replace that, right? Um, and then to your point earlier, like they could have easily done a production meeting where they could have shown the Ricochet pre-tape before they went out there, because it was a minute or two, and then they that way they could have had an idea of what they were going to say Or he could have had Ricochet interrupt him before Mike Bailey comes in. You know what I mean? Like there was several different ways to structure this thing because like I know that if anyone listens to this, if we post it, the response will be, well, that's the way wrestling's gonna be, and it's like, well, no, there's always a better or a different way to do stuff. Like not everything's just got to be.
Or you don't do this fucking promo this week. You wait until Ricochet is back, and then you do it, and you do it fucking right. Like, Mr. Ricochet, why are you having a wedding on a Wednesday? Anyway,
Well, I mean that's personal life stuff. So like more question is like why are you making the pre-tape on it when you have a Saturday show that you could have also done this segment on, right? Like that's more of the thing that I would point out of. It was like, hey, like if there was if because I'm assuming they knew he was getting married, right? So it's like there was a way fucking around that. Whether you put it on a different day, you show them the pre-tape beforehand. So yeah, it's a very interesting thing. But yeah, so after that we got Bandito and Jericho package explaining the Bandito and Jericho lore, which
also just like heads up, like
sorry.
like we can edit this shit out, but like
Okay.
we talked about this for 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Like I mean, like we can review that after, but just like put
Yeah.
that note.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It took us for a while. Let's talk about it. But yeah. So the next segment was Jericho and Bandito, and it was a video going over their lore, and then a Jericho pre-tape, which I don't understand why Jericho wants Bandito's mask. And then also, what was very weird about this pre-tape, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but Jericho's facing the camera, like dead on facing the camera, eye level with the camera, more or less. And then he's got, I believe, Brian Keith to his left and Big Bill to his right. And because he's in front of, like physically standing in front of them, dead center of the camera, and every time he addresses them, he has to like turn and look at them in a weird angle and like look behind his shoulder at them, and he keeps like turning side to side, and because his hair's down and very thin, it's like flopping, and it just looks so goofy. I was like, man, they couldn't think of a better way to stage this moment than that. But yeah, so that's another just a weird production thing that they did. It just felt very unnatural, right? Because like people make fun of the fact that WWE used to show people watching televisions in unnatural ways. So that just felt very, very weird, especially considering it was a pre-tape, and you could have easily someone could have reviewed that and been like, "Yeah, dude, let's put Jericho behind them, that way they can be looking at him while he talks to both of them." I don't know, staging. And I guess and I couldn't figure out why Jericho wants Bandito's mask, other than I guess that's the story they're telling to explain why they're having a rematch because Jericho beat him the first time. Because in AEW now we do 50-50 booking. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. That's a big thing now.
Yeah, it really doesn't make sense that Jericho's the one that wants the rematch and not Bandito, considering Jericho's the one that attacked Gravity, Bandito's brother, but
Yeah.
Jericho's the one that wants the match. I mean, I get it. I mean, what they're trying to say is he wants his mask, but why does he want his mask?
Yeah. Because he already beat him, right? You know what I mean? And he beat him clean, more or less, if I remember correctly. I can't remember what the exact finish was. Bandito pulled a hell. Jericho, that match was really good. People like to hate on Jericho, but that, as do I. But that was a good match, and I do like the more serious turn that Jericho's taking. So, like, this is a criticism of Jericho here because he's probably in control of the creative here. So it just, like, brother, it doesn't make any sense. But hey, you gotta do what you gotta do. And then I don't know if you guys noticed, as soon it was over, it cut to MJF's music playing, and God bless Excalibur, bro, because he tried. He started talking, and he tried to explain why the mask was important, and he pulled a Mike Tenay, and he's all talking about how the mask is important in fucking Lucha Libre culture, as you hear fucking MJF's fucking, like, stock music playing in the background. not even in the background, like over him talking, and I just thought that was hilarious. It made me miss the days of when Excalibur just used to like run everything down super fast. They didn't bring that back. What'd you think of the MVP MJF segment?
It's interesting how so far everyone that has been positioned opposite of Hurt Syndicate has been made to look much worse than they are historically in AEW. Whether that's Swerve, whether it's MJF, whether it's Ricochet, Private Party, you name it. Hurt Syndicate has looked like coolest guys. These guys have all looked like geeks. So it's odd decision making so far. And with this kind of storytelling, at no point has Hurt Syndicate had their comeuppance or had the guy that looked like a geek get their lick back. So it's quite odd how, or it's going to be very interesting to see how MF, who is arguably top 2-3 guy in the whole company, comes out looking better in this storyline than the others have. Most recently, Swerve, who wrestles Bobby Lashley, loses, doesn't get a rematch. It's off to different things.
Yeah, no,
So that'll be interesting.
I was picking up what you're putting down there. And if anyone listens to this, they might know your history with Evo Select there. So I think there may be some smoke to that fire of what Mr. Evo was saying on that, because to your point, Swerve never got his lick back, and he did say, Bobby Lashley, I told you I'm going to get my hands on you before the end of 2020, before the end of the year or something like that, and he did not. Then they built the murder machines to be the ones to go against them. Then all of a sudden the murder machines don't go against them. Dudes that are probably bigger than both those guys, realistically. I don't know how tall Brian Cage is, but I know that Bobby Lashley is much shorter than people think he is. So yeah, that, and then you have them come across MJF, and I thought MJF looked like kind of a geek when Bobby Lashley got in his face and walked off. I mean, granted, they did explain it a little bit later on, but I was like, why the fuck? Like, do they not know? Like, why have they not talked about this before? Like, they're supposed to be this tight group, right? This like good group of friends, like they do business together, and they don't know that that MJF got the card. Like, what are we doing here? And then also, how many is this the third person that they've given a card to and then taken away from? So they did it to Leo Rush, they did it to Ricochet, and they did it to um, to MJF now, right? So this is the third time that someone's been given the card and had it revoked. Am I correct on that, or has it just been two? Because I know Ricochet had it done because they geeked him out and said we don't like a kiss ass thing, even though he'd never really kissed their ass at that point.
No, it's 3 if you include MJF.
Okay, so it was 3. Okay, so I was correct on that. Okay, cool. And then, so I thought that was really bad because like making MJF look like a geek shouldn't be done. No matter what your opinion on MJF is, like everyone recognizes that MJF is one of the crown jewels of the company, and he's someone that, whether you like it or not, should be protected to a degree. And to look like a dork across from Bobby Lashley, not good as far as my opinion is building your company, right? If you have MJF look like a dweeb across from this fucking 50-year-old who Bobby Lashley seems like a great guy in his interviews, but let's be real, in the ring, 3-star general, never produced a great match in my opinion, and he gets gassed very quickly. So I don't know where they're going with this. I'm not looking forward to it. Then Brian Keith and Big Bill came out to challenge for the titles, despite never winning a match, to my knowledge. If they did, it would have been a trios match with Jericho. So, yeah. And then the MVP fucking buried them, dude. That was crazy. MVP buried them. He made them look so bad. He was like, "Oh, you're just gonna be a little bitch," and he was like, "Oh, we'll see you, the little." Big Bill's like, "We'll see who the little bitch is," and he was like, "Yeah, it's you. You're the little bitch. I thought we established that." I was like, "Fuck, dude." I was like, God damn MVP, man. And then, of course, and Big Bill starts talking about his rematch, his title rematch, how he never got his title rematch. I'm sorry, is he still in a tag team with Ricky fucking Saints? Is that what's going on here? Like, what the fuck does he mean? Like, he didn't get his rematch. That was like what mid 2024 when that happened, or was that 2023? When he was tag champions.
He loses in what, October? No, I think they win in October 2023, and they lose in what, January, February of the start of the year. 'Cause that's when
Okay,
the Bucks return, right?
yeah, somewhere around then, yeah. So maybe yeah, because they were definitely there in March. Um, they were definitely back from March because that's when Revolution was. So
Right.
yeah, what the fuck is he talking about? Or a tag team tag or title rematch? What the fuck? Like your tag partner's in a different company, brother. Like what are we doing here? So then, of course, they did the current AEW favorite of, hey guys, you need to go win a match so you can get a title match, and which will bring upon something that happened later. But I hate this way that they build people for stuff. They can't just have them win matches in the weeks leading up to stuff. They have to declare that in order to win a title match, then you in order to get a title match, you need to win a match. And I don't understand this because by this logic, shouldn't like Undisputed Kingdom get a match because they want a match against FTR? You know, um, so I don't really get it, but this is how AEW has been booking stuff, particularly with the Hurt Syndicate. So we'll see
Okay,
what
did you
happens.
think MVP buried his opponents?
I definitely think that he buried those guys. Like it reminded me of Charlotte and Tiffany on Raw, where these are your opponents. You're actually supposed to be putting them over because you're trying to sell the match. But instead, it was like, no, you guys are bitches.
It was
Like
Like,
so
if you're gonna
bad.
if you're gonna
and
beat
you haven't
someone
won a match.
and you haven't won,
It was so bad.
yeah, if you're gonna face someone and you're gonna beat them, would you not want to make it feel like your win was important or big? And how do you do that? You do that by making the person that you beat look good, as opposed to just fucking bury them as like they're jobbers. So like it very much looked like same thing with Tiffany and Charlotte. Both parties knew the script. One person ad-libbed and went off script, and the other person wasn't prepared. And so like Big Bill was saying his stuff, MVP just had like video responses, and Big Bill's how you got caught off guard in that situation. Same thing with Tiffy. Charlotte goes off script a little bit, sink or swim. Tiffy sticks.
All I know is that shit was fucking awful, dude. It was so bad. I cringed. I legitimately was like, ugh. And to your point, Air, normally, yes, that I actually one of my least favorite things, not least favorite things, but I don't like how wrestlers always put over their opponent all the time. But you know, in this instance, yeah, with no build, right? And these guys being the lackeys for Jericho, who, let's be real, doesn't really, even despite being ROH champion, really hasn't won very many matches of consequence in about a year or two. So yeah, you might want to maybe put them over, especially if you're building it for a pay per view match, not for fucking television, because some people still pay, money for these. Not everyone is pirating them. So and then also, I don't have high hopes for this particular match. I don't know how you guys feel about them on pay per view, but I think it's going to be a repeat of last pay-per-view, where it is probably arguably the worst match on the card.
I'm surprised they skipped over Murder Machine. Lately. The decision making in terms of like opponents for these title shots, questionable to say the least.
Yeah. I mean, my personal opinion is I don't think so. I think someone didn't want to bump for somebody or didn't want to look small. Because I heard someone say that, well, Brian Cage is hurt, and I was like, well, Brian Cage had matches after that, because didn't they even have like a little thing where Brian Cage tagged with somebody who wasn't his partner, and then Lance Archer came out after the fact and then was upset that he was tagging with someone else, and he was like, oh, so yeah. After that, we had Tony and Thunder backstage. I did not know that Tony and Thunder had merch because she was wearing a Thunderstorm T-shirt.
It's one of
Maybe.
the old ones because they've been a
Three
tag team
years.
before,
Yeah, it's
right?
about 3 years old.
Okay, so I just forgot about it. Is what it was. Okay, I was very confused. Also, on things I was confused about in that thing was they were having kind of a tumultuous interaction with one another, which I understand because they do have a history with one another. And Rosa did was like, you're not even acting like yourself. You're acting totally different. So I appreciate Rosa doing that. But Rosa then was said she wants a title shot because she never lost it. But she did have a rematch against Tony for that title on a pay-per-view last year, maybe even Dynasty, and she lost to Tony.
Yeah, she's lost to Tony at Dynasty, and then she lost to Mariah at World's End. So, what are you
I
talking
didn't.
about?
I didn't even think about that. I forgot about the Mariah match. Yeah, because she had the Tijuana street fight that happened in Orlando or wherever the fuck. The WWEism, the Vinceism for the match. Yeah. You know, she's from Tijuana, so it's got to be a Tijuana street fight.
Yep,
Which
you gotta have the dad with the bottle pocket. You gotta have all the imagery.
no, bro, they had like lowrider bikes out there. That shit was racist as fuck. It definitely felt like some Vince shit. I was very disappointed in AEW at that point in that match. But, you know, it is what it is. So,
Like
yeah,
the one good thing that comes out of this promo is like Toni Storm, absolute fucking star. Like every time she talks, you never know what she's gonna say. It's always different. There's no catchphrase. I mean, there is a catchphrase, but it's said differently. It's set up differently. She's just so good. She's like the MVP of AEW this year so far, by far.
I mean, she's definitely gonna say some wild sexual shit. You know what I mean? Because that's what Tony does. And everybody, if you have a British accent or anything, because well, she's from Australia, so if you have something a facsimile of a British accent, you can historically say some wildly sexual shit on this show, and no one seems to bat an eye.
Shout out William Regal.
Yeah, fucking Nigel talking about eating brie.
Yep.
Yeah, like no, Nigel has a tendency to step over the line, sometimes in a good way and sometimes in a bad way. Which separate issue, but as you guys know, when he asked if that was Nana's mother on the pay-per-view with what's her name, I can't remember. But anyway, so next we, yeah, Jesus Christ. Next we had the Fletcher come out, and for his match, they were putting over how much Fletcher, like what I thought. Okay, first, what I thought was funny is on the lower third, it says his Dynamite record. Like it says that he's like 1-0 or in 2025 on Dynamite specifically. You know, like he didn't have a fucking cage match. I know it wasn't on Dynamite, but you know, so they're inflating the record that way, or just trying to make it look better. And then commentary is putting over how the cage match is career shortening as Fletcher is literally fucking flexing and posing. And they're just talking about I was like, really guys? I like look at your fucking monitor, dude. The guy is hitting the double buy right now. And he's pointing at the fucking camera. And you're telling me that he had a career shortening match last time we saw him? Like I don't know who's producing them or if someone's producing them at all, but it seems like lately they are not watching their monitors for whatever is going on. What did you guys think about this match? I know I watched it on Triller, so I watched it without commercials or with with where it went through the commercial break. I saw everything. I don't know how you guys saw it.
Go ahead, Dougie. Start us off.
I thought it was pretty good.
And you watched it on Max, correct?
I watched it on Max. Like I didn't see any of the break part because they put the commercials on there. Even though you have the no commercials, they still put commercials. So, the actual wrestling part of it that I was able to see was really good. Not sure what it's leading to. I mean, probably leading to a tag match, right?
Yeah,
Um,
Brody King and Hobbs are tagging against fucking Aussie Open next week.
Awesome. Yeah,
You think
yeah.
they're gonna call him Aussie Open, or do you think they'll call him the Don Callis family?
I think they should call them both Don Callis Family's Aussie Open or something like that. But they'll probably just call them Fletcher and Davis. Instead of calling Aussie Open now. But I thought the actual match was good. They did the thing where this match is not supposed to be happening right now. In the aftermath, and then went right into the next match. Um, Fletcher continues to impress for me. I mean, he did the wild overselling all match, but it works for him because that's his character. Um, I'd like Brody to get more of a push, but it's hard to find spots for pushes right now.
Yeah, it is. I think they could. I personally don't. I
As a
like
match
this
as a
match felt like
whole,
I felt a little long. Okay, go ahead.
I was gonna say as a whole, like this match was, I just checked 17 minutes 48 seconds, and there were parts of this match that I felt were dragging for the sake of just being long. It was like, um, I watched on TBS, and so I was watching a picture in picture, and there was like times where like there are clearly a lot of down spots that they're just um adding time to this match necessarily without there being much substance or any kind of like selling on the outside going on. So those were some issues that I had. And also like commentary did put over the fact that this cage match is career shortening. Will Ospreay's last match, he's selling his hip, he's selling the aftermath of this cage match and the brutality of it. And Kyle Fletcher comes out unscathed. This guy, he looks like he just came out of the gym. He didn't wrestle shit. He didn't He didn't fall off a steel cage. He didn't take a Spanish fly. He didn't take a Styles clash on top of thumbtacks. He did nothing. He took no damage. This guy's perfectly fine. Let's go. What's next?
Fucking
So,
Osprey definitely took the brunt of that Spanish fly, didn't he, when he landed on his hip? Fucking
oh, I don't think Ospreay's selling. I think he's legitimately
yeah,
just
no, that's
fucking
what I'm
took
saying.
that shit.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. That's what I'm saying. I think he took the brunt of that because, brother, I don't think he was selling. I think that hurt. But yeah, fucking, it was just, and I get it. Like, you want to put over the danger of the match, but at this point, if the guy's not going to sell it, and and it goes down to like, brother, look at the monitor. Like, if you can visibly see that the motherfucker is flexing, hitting the double buy, and ripping his pants off like he's a fucking stripper, like maybe don't talk about how his career was shortened. Just read the room, fam. It's not that hard.
Yeah. Again, it goes
So
back to like a disconnect, right, between like what they're trying to do on screen, or like what the wrestlers are doing on screen, versus what like the commentators are trying to narrate. There's a disconnect between the two.
yeah, and I don't like. I said this earlier. Like I don't know if someone's producing them or not, but if they are, and it's like because we don't know who does what. Maybe it was Mike Mansuri because we know he is a producer there. Um, he needs to fucking stop because I used to think Excalibur and Taz were some of the best in the game. I enjoy them actually, and even there were points later on in the show where I have in my notes about how great they were on commentary. So there's it's like when they're being forced to be produced and tell a story like other than what they're seeing on their television or on their monitors, then it never works out properly. But yeah, so I saw the match on Triller, so I saw it without the commercial breaks, and brother, let me tell you, this match was fucking long. Like way too fucking long. They should have given Kenny Omega and Blake Christian some time, or put another match on the show. And I don't mean this just because I'm a Blake Christian mark. Like this match went through 2 ad breaks. So in the first one, like, well, first what happened, there was too much selling, for my opinion. Well, because Fletcher was just doing his NXT face and all that kind of stuff. Um, at one point, he took a boot to the throat in the corner and then rolls out of the ring and lays on the floor for like 45 seconds and starts like grabbing his stomach. So whatever. He posed Brody, and they say like, "Oh, his head hit the post," and it clearly didn't. And then Tony Schiavone is like, "Oh, I like that. His head did hit the post, and his knees hit the ring." And I was like, "Oh, god damn it!" And that's clearly not happened. But then they did what a lot of the matches are doing now. They would just, it used as someone who's always watched on Triller through a VPN because I don't want to watch on. I hate the commercial breaks. It takes me out of it. They used to not slow their matches down that much for a commercial break. Some wild shit would happen on commercial break. Sometimes you'd come back from an ad break and someone would be bleeding. Um, and I don't complain just as like someone who's watching from like a Triller standpoint. From a live fan perspective, right? It kind of brings the match down when people have to slow the match down in unnatural portions of the match. Some wrestlers are really good at doing this in a natural way to where it doesn't take you out of the match. Like Darby Allin always hits a big spot right beforehand. That way it doesn't look weird. And there's no, like, the natural come down in the pacing of the match is, like I said, natural. For this one, for the first ad break, Brody King hit a lariat. He goes over the top rope, and then they go to the outside. And they throw some chops and bullshit around. The match slows down quite a bit. It cracked me up because at one point Taz said that Don Callis has a resting douche face, and so he was talking mad shit with Don Callis. It was hilarious. Then similarly, they had the second ad break, which was he hit a DVD on the apron, and then they sold outside because this is the thing now. It's always to the outside. It's what WWE I don't used to do. I don't watch WWE anymore very often. So they used to do this all the time whenever they'd have an ad break. They'd go to the outside. It has this Pavlovian impact to where when you go outside, it's supposed to be more dangerous. Like in the Briscoe and Takeshita match, perfect example. They were doing moves on the outside, and Briscoe was making them more dangerous. When Brody and Fletcher went outside, it slowed the match down almost to a grinding halt at points. So if you continuously do this over time, it makes you less. It makes you turn off in your mind when they go outside, and it happens with the audience too. And you start to matches don't get the natural heat that they should, and they can't be as good because they have this unnatural pacing, especially with 2 ad breaks. So I probably would have drastically enjoyed this match a lot more had I've been watching it on Max and had it cut, probably because they would slow down and then pick up to the pace. it seemed like Brody was more over than Fletcher. I don't know if you guys, what do you guys thought about that? It's like, and I don't know if it's just because the heel baby face dynamic, but people were chanting Brody, and then there were, a lots of barks.
Yeah, I think like Brody always gets great reactions. One of those guys that consistently gets great reactions, even with like the House of Black, where like you had like Malachi Black was supposed to be the leader, supposed to be cooler. It was always Brody's chants that were over. He barks, everybody barks, and so he's clearly over. And like, yeah, to Dougie's point, like, oh, it'd be nice if they could do more with this guy because he's clearly someone who wrestles the kind of matches that the AW fan base likes to watch. And so it'd be good if you could do something with him.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of AEW fans talk about stars and quote unquote, because they're not wrestling fans talk about stars because they have this like urge or unnatural. They have this natural desire to want mainstream acceptance because they've been bullied for being wrestling fans their whole life. So they're looking for stars and people who will notice it in the mainstream, so they don't feel like fucking nerds. And what a lot of these people don't know, maybe they do know, maybe they don't realize it. Brody King's the singer of a band called God's Hate. That's they're a moderately sized band. Like I've seen them live several times. I've seen them play, from anywhere from back in the day to like a couple hundred people, now to a couple thousand people, depending on what festival I went to. So Brody King's got a fan base of people who know who Brody King is, who don't know that he's a wrestler, or people who know that he is a wrestler but don't watch wrestling. So if we're talking about people with crossover potential, you know what I mean. Brody King is one of those people that you can throw in on that list who has more star potential, quote unquote, than what a lot of people may think. And I saw he hit a dive on Fletcher at one point during the match, and I saw a lot of people were like, "Oh my God, Brody can move like that," or not move like that, but people were surprised at how good his tope was, and I was just like, "Brother, the guy's a fucking hardcore. He's a former hardcore. I mean, not former hardcore kid because he's a man now, but like what I mean. He's been listening to hardcore music for his whole adult life, as far as I know, and since he's a teenager. So that motherfucker's been jumping off stage and jumping off shit for a long ass time. I've seen him take a fucking gnarly stage dive multiple times. Like there's a picture of him that went viral of him doing a stage dive at Sound and Fury. Yeah, so it's like Brody King can be that guy. I wish they would push him more, and I wish they would let him get wins because he falls in that category of guy who is going to have a badass match that isn't going to get a win, and that's kind of a bummer. I will say, and to your point, Dougie, earlier, what you said is they said that they have a match that wasn't supposed to happen that bled over. It was funny because they said that, but they both come out with their gear. Hobbs gets his intro music, even though he's coming through the crowd for the rescue, but he's not really running through the crowd. So like everything about it was set up as if it was supposed to be a match, and then then they're like, "Oh, we can't break these guys up." So, like it felt very raw. You know what I mean? When Adam Pearce is like, "Oh, we gotta have a match because these two people had an argument here," or something like that happened, or they had a fight backstage.
Not only that, the match was announced, was scheduled to happen.
Yeah. They did this last week on Collision, not last week on Collision, but on the week before that on Collision, when I think it was Hobbs too. Hobbs had the match with somebody, and then they had the unscheduled top flight match that Crew just so happened to be watching, but they put it over as like, oh, because Hobbs beat his Tony Schiavone did this because he beat his opponent so fast, we have to have a standby match, and it's like, brother. AEW official Twitter announced the fucking match order with that match on there before the show even fucking started, my guy. What are you talking about, standby match? And then if they're not supposed to be having this match, or if this match isn't supposed to be at this place at this time in the show, because I think that's what they meant, is like the match is supposed to happen, just not at that time. maybe don't have both guys come out in their fucking gear and then give them their entrance music. Or actually, I don't think fucking Mark Davis got his entrance music, but Hobbs did. Which I don't know why they do shit like that, because like they do the same thing with pyro, where they give one person pyro but not the other, and they do it at pay-per-views all the time. And I'm like, bro, that's kind of a tell on who's gonna win the fucking match. It's probably the person who had fireworks go off on their entrance, not the person who didn't. Also, Tony, you get paid $18 million a month. Maybe you should put fucking pyro for everybody, like you used to. Like Jimmy Jacobs got a ridiculous amount of pyro on a fucking Ring of Honor. Ricky Starks got like $500,000 in pyro on a random ass collision. Like, what are we doing here? Like, everyone should be getting it. And to you guys, to your point, Eric, the match was a fucking squash. Like, why did that even happen? Like, you presented Davis as a beast last week, and then you squashed him more or less this week. At one point, they're face to face, and Don Callis is putting over how big Davis is, and Tony Schiavone is like, Hobbs is bigger, and Don Callis is like, no, Davis is bigger, and he's like, well, that's your opinion, because he does this fake inside yell. Well, that's your opinion that he's bigger, blah 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 blah. And I was like, well, no, brother, I'm looking at them. Like Hobbs is more jacked than him, but Mark Davis is a physically bigger man than Hobbs is. Like he's taller than he is, and he's not in the best of shape, but like he's a big man, and if he were to hit the gym like Hobbs does, he would be a bigger guy than Hobbs would be, potentially muscular too, if on a similar regimen. So I just thought that again another instance of commentary, particularly Tony Schiavone, just just talking and not paying attention to what he's actually fucking saying. Because let's be real, it's normally Tony Schiavone who's the culprit of this bullshit. Would you? Oh, and then obviously it's going to lead to a match between Hobbs and Brody tagging against Aussie Open, like we said earlier. I think this is getting to become a tired trope in AEW now, where we get like two singles people tagging together randomly because these other two people have a feud, and it's like a friend of my friend babyface tag, and they never have great chemistry, and the matches always end up being mediocre. And it's like, Tony, you have a whole fucking tag division. We just complained about the build for fucking the pay per view match. Maybe devote some of these tag matches that you're doing to actual fucking tag teams. Build some people who that's why you hired them. I don't know what your guys' thoughts on that are.
They'd actually have to, care about the tag division for any of that to happen.
Well, remember when they were going to
But
reset it? Remember they brought in Grizzled Young Vets? They they separated Action Andretti and Leo Rush fucking months ago. The Outrunners were hot. They started talking about fucking Undisputed going for tag gold. Like we got LFI with or without Roosh, depending on what's going on there. If he's in trouble, if it's a visa issue, I don't fucking know. And then you got fucking Titans of the Air who are fucking amazing, but they're we're doing a bullshit Disney adult fucking Beauty and the Beast storyline instead of putting them in serious positions. So there's a tag division there. It's just the time gets fucking ate up for this trash because Tony doesn't want to beat Hologram and Commander, but he'll beat Commander like a drum when he's by himself, despite being a champion. What did you think of the backstage patriarchy segment with no Christian Cage and Nick Wayne leading?
they're clearly sowing the seeds for Nick Wayne to be the rebellious son and pull away from the patriarchy. So like it kind of ties into the rated STR segment.
How did you think that Nick Wayne did as someone who doesn't really get that much television time? And historically, at the beginning of his run, I mean, he is a kid. He cheeses a lot on camera. He breaks character. He has trouble staying serious. I personally thought he did really well in this. I'm excited to see where Nick Wayne goes. I want to see him get an actual push and win some matches because he's arguably, you know, top 25 on the men's division there, and he doesn't wrestle. Like he's been on AEW for what 2 years? Air, you probably know off the top of your head. Um, I, yeah. Anyway, he's probably been there for like 2 years, and he has had very few matches. And I think a big portion of the AEW audience doesn't know how good this guy actively is at wrestling. Like there was that GCW match with him versus Will Ospreay before he got signed, and I don't know why they ever ran that back or highlighted him at all.
He had a match with I think his last actual match was same match anyway. It was Joe, but that was like a 5 minute match.
Yeah, it was on Collision earlier this year.
Mm.
He got Hook's only. He got one of Hook's only good matches out of him. So that should tell
That
you
is
everything.
true.
Next, we had a backstage segment with Hangman. Maybe one of you guys, maybe I missed something because it starts off with Hangman talking. Swerve interrupts and says, you were getting involved in my championship." When did Hangman get involved? Say that he was going to get involved with his championship match.
Last week, last
He
week,
did.
Hangman said that he's gonna stop Swerve from winning the title.
Okay, he did. I missed it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Last week he was like his mission is still to stop Swerve from winning the title,
Okay. Cool. Cool.
and
Because
that's why Swerve comes in and says, "Did I hear you say that you're gonna stop me from winning the title? Stop me from winning my title?" And he's like, "Bitch, did I stutter?"
Gotcha. Okay. Because I must have missed that last week, and because I was confused, I was like, I don't remember him saying that he was getting involved. But all right, go off, brother. So okay, that's just an error on my part from last week. But what's your thoughts of them hitting this feud again already?
I don't believe they're actually gonna hit it. They're just teasing it. I don't think that they're actually going to do the match. I mean, I know a lot of the fan base wants them to do the All In match. Um, I just don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're playing a dangerous game of 2 years in a row, teasing Hangman and Swerve, and then not delivering. That's how you sour a lot of your fan base.
Yeah, because people were upset about that last year.
Hangman
Which
has to show
It's
up in the main event at Dynasty, right? Like he has to. If you believe what's going on the screen.
what I have a question is why is Hangman not involved in MJF anymore? Like, was that did like I mean I know he beat him, but like normally, like I said earlier, we're now in the 50-50 era. I figured there was more juice to squeeze from that feud. So I was a little confused why we're going to the Swerve stuff are back already. But
Yeah, that choice is an odd one because Tony Khan, AEW, set up the Hangman MJF match as something big. AEW's top villain versus AEW's top babyface. And they ended up on a card where they were like the fourth or fifth most important match from a build standpoint. There were a lot more matches that had more of a build, more storyline importance, all that stuff. And MJF Hangman ideally should be one of those big matches that you can easily sell a pay-per-view on because it's AEW's top villain versus AEW's top babyface. And so structurally, from a company history standpoint, all of that stuff, these are the two guys that should be propping up as two guys that the other company does not have, that they can't compete with, that they can't compare with. This is us. This is AEW in a nutshell. This is what we can do, and no one else can. And yeah, it kind of sucks that they moved on and went to something else.
Yeah, because Hangman got MJF to lock the fuck in. Like,
Yeah,
MJF
especially.
has not been locked in lately.
I wonder
So
if this was like. I wonder whose decision this was to do this match. And if I think it probably was like an MJF decision because he's online a lot. He knows what they're saying, what the dirt sheets are saying, or not the dirt sheets, what the talking heads are saying. And so clearly he realized that whatever he was trying to achieve with Jeff Jarrett wasn't good. No one was going to like it. No one wanted to see it. And so the pivot ended up being Hangman. And so they did it, and now, okay, this is what we were going to do anyway, so let's do it now. MJF seems to have somewhat of a direction. Hangman is once again up in the air, directionless.
he once again cut his backstage promo, which he didn't even get to cut.
But the other interesting thing there was like, if you recall, at the what is it, maybe like 2.5 months ago now, there was a backstage segment where Hangman went looking for Swerve. Right? He knocked down Swerve's
Yes.
locker room, opened the door, went in, and Renee Paquette asked him, "What are you doing?" He's like, "None of your business." And that's when he runs into MJF once again. But like, just like a narrative standpoint, it's interesting how Hangman went looking for Swerve, and Hangman gave up looking for Swerve after that first try. It's not brought up again on that show, even though Swerve was in the building. It's not something that Hangman did any of the weeks following that. And Swerve is able to find him off rip, first try, boom. You talked about me, here I am, like the boogeyman. And so I wonder if that's just like a coincidence or there's something more to it.
Yeah, I mean, because I was wondering something similar as far as that's concerned, because it was just kind of strange at the fact that they because they were seemingly teasing a different direction is where I'm trying what I'm trying to say there, and so it just seems like a hard it seems like a hard pivot, but yeah, I very much wonder what's next for Hangman, right? Because now he is yet again a tangential character in the background that kind of doesn't matter. Um, and I also wonder where we're going to go with Max and MJF, or Max and MVP and the Hurt Syndicate, because I'm personally not looking very forward to that. Next, we got the fucking interview. Also, what I was asking that question though is I'm afraid they were going to run Swerve and Hangman into the ground, because it's just like they keep going back to this, and it feels like they keep doing it because they don't have any other ideas for these two, and so it's like they're just going to beat you to death with it, and I'm afraid you're going to hit the law of diminishing returns for what should be your biggest feud that you potentially have, or at least your biggest current homegrown feud.
I think they've already run it to the ground. They've already done it more than I would have liked them to do it. So like they wrestled at Wrestle Dream, They wrestled a Full Gear in the Texas Death Match. And there was that number 1 contendership match on Dynamite, which went to a time limit draw.
They
They had the
had the
Revolution
interaction.
Triple Threat.
They had the
They
interaction
did
at
the fucking Blood and Guts match.
Yeah.
At Blood and Guts, and then All Out. So that's like what 6 times that these guys have like wrestled. 4 times they wrestled in a proper match. 3 times they wrestled in a singles match. So like it's already done too many times. This feud starts. It's basically like in the span of 11, 12 months. This is all you did, and at no point was it the most important thing on AEW television. Even when he was feuding with Hangman, Swerve was. The direction was always All In. The direction was always Bryan Danielson. We knew that was the end goal because that's what they had set up.
Right.
So like, you present these two guys as over as fuck characters. Crowd loves them. This feud is hot. People want to see it. But that's in the fans' eyes. On screen, you're being told a very different message. This is all happening in the background. It's happening, yes, but like, this is what you should really be focusing on. And so whenever they do this next, I'd love for them to do it big, do it right, make it mean the world. Do it at All In. Do it on your biggest show. Make sure it main events. Everything should be focused on these two guys in a match, and the focus shouldn't be deviated elsewhere. Whereas, like right now, it very much is.
Yeah, I agree. And to Dougie's point earlier, yeah, I think they're playing with fire on this one. I think they're playing with fire with these two dudes in general, because a lot of people think Swerve, the potential that Swerve could win, and I don't know what show they're watching, but we'll talk about that in a second here when we get to the Swerve mock stuff. Dougie, what was your thoughts on the FTR Cope interview backstage thing, the sit down?
I don't really like the direction they're going. I guess they're trying to tease dissension. Um, Also, just like if you watch the show and pay attention, wasn't exactly true what Dax was saying because they did not put their stuff on hold. They actually disappeared from the Death Riders angle. So
Yeah, so
I was close.
okay. I was just, I have in my notes. So there's the interview with FTR and Cope. Tony Schiavone says that we don't know the history of their relationship, when we absolutely do. They've made that abundantly clear several times. And I have literally what Dax is saying makes no sense. FTR hasn't been helping Cope for months, and they weren't even going for the tag gold. They were feuding with Undisputed for whatever reason. So yeah, I was very confused by that. And then I have, why is this happening? Question mark, question mark, question mark. And then it feels like then Cope takes the spot of, well, I actually didn't take you away from going after the gold. I came to help you, which is true because they went to help Orange Cassidy for no reason. The conglomeration, fucking Orange Cassidy's faction, didn't help him against the Death Riders, but FTR did for some reason. Then FTR got taken out. They said they weren't going to be cleared for X amount of time. Then they came back a week early. They didn't really sell their injuries because he had a bandage on his hand and like a little normal band-aid on his fucking eye or eyebrow. But anyway, so that didn't make any fucking sense. Then Cope says, "Hey, that's not what happened," and I was like, "Yeah, Cope's right." And then I was like, "Yo, does it feel like every segment that Cope's involved with, they're trying to babyface Cope? Like they know like there's some backlash towards him online, and so it's like they had to put. It's like, oh yeah, you're right, Cope. That was my bad. I was wrong. It wasn't. It was me. I was in the wrong, Cope. You were right. Because Dax, that was Dax's whole point, was he was apologizing for being in the wrong. And then on the week on Collision before, you had the Mox and Swerve segment where Swerve got stomped by Mox, and in his segment he's putting over Cope being a fucking legend and all this kind of shit. Then that segment ends with Mox putting over how big of a threat Cope is, but now Cope's not even fucking involved anymore. So it's like, it feels like, to me, there's been a lot of stuff that like revolves around Cope, or trying to make him look like he's a great guy, which I'm not saying he's not, but like it's like they're self-aware that there's some people online that are aware this guy hasn't eaten a pin since like 2011, fucking, which is crazy. I don't know when the last time that guy took a pin was, because every single time I see someone post like, "Oh, he took a pin on this day," everyone's like, "Actually, someone got kicked in the balls, or someone interfered." And so, like, I don't think anyone knows when the last time this dude took a legit clean pin was, other than the Christian. But yeah. So anyway, Dax complains about the tag titles being taken away, and then what was funny is fucking Cash is like, I think there's still more we could do as a trios title team. I think we could go after the trios. And then Dax is immediately like, "You're right. We could. Let's do that." And I was like, brother, why are you so pissy about the fucking tag titles then? If you immediately didn't realize you could go for the trios titles, and then we're like, "Oh yeah, that sounds like a swell idea." Like, it just, the whole thing felt fucking pointless and stupid. Like, just announce that they want a fucking match. Like, I don't know. I didn't like it.
I think it's happening kind of backwards as well. Like, maybe you do the trios championship match first with the Death Riders, and then you get to Mox. Since Mox is the final boss. He's the guy that you're trying to get to. Instead of killing the Death Riders one by one, taking them out, making them look bad, potentially having them look not as serious going forward, you do the trios match, and then you get to Mox, which should be like your natural progression in this hierarchical ladder that you have established in AEW.
Yeah, no, I agree. It was totally booked backwards. I thought the same thing too when we got to their promo later on in the show. Next we had the Swerve and Mox stuff. Man, fucking Mox takes longer to get to the ring than fucking Roman Reigns at this point in time. Jesus Christ, this brother fucking walks slow as shit. Fucking, God. I don't know. I don't even know what was said in this promo. I don't remember it. I just have extremely long. Nothing's really said. Mox is talking to Swerve like he wasn't a heel champion for fucking 4 months. What is this? Because he was like, you don't know what it's like to carry the weight, all that shit. And I was like, yeah, he does, brother. He's been to the mountaintop. Like, he's been the face of the company. What the fuck are you talking about? It's kind of like how Adam Copeland was trying to big bro Mox. You know what I mean? It's like, what are we doing here? So that was confusing to me. Mox said he doesn't give out handouts. But hasn't almost every match that Mox has had as champion with the Death Riders been instigated by Mox? Like, being like, all right, I'm going to have a match with you. So that just felt like a little narrative thing that didn't feel right. What were you guys' thoughts on Willow coming out to interact with Swerve, and despite never, to my knowledge, interacting with Swerve on television?
Marina Shafir last wrestled in AEW some point in 2023, so it's been nearly 2 years. She's in the Death Riders as this cool Sarah Connors character, exudes aura, looks great, looks like a badass. She's beating up guys, she's choking out guys like Jay White. Incredible. Willow first interfered or attacked her at Full Gear last year. And they didn't do the match, and so they've constantly gone back to this. But I think AEW knows what we all know that should Willow and Marina wrestle, Willow will outclass her. Marina will not look as good, and it will hurt her on-screen presence as part of the Death Riders. And so they're doing this thing where like they've set up this mixed tag match for next week on Dynamite, Mox and Marina versus Willow and Swerve, to do the match between Marina and Willow, have them wrestle, but then also like shelter them or shelter Marina in this match because the other three are significantly better wrestlers.
So you don't think that this mixed tag match is going to lead to a singles match between Willow and Marina?
It should. It absolutely should at Dynasty, but I don't think it will because the second the bell rings between Willow and Marina, it's over for Marina.
Okay.
She just can't hang in the ring with her.
I mean, I don't disagree with you, especially because, like, obviously Marina is a credible combat fighter, but she's not the best professional wrestler. I've personally seen her have some good matches with Masha Slamovich and some other women who, have a more realistic style, where Willow does more traditional pro wrestling. So yeah, I don't think they'd have a great match personally. Um, I just thought it was a little bit weird that, other than the fact that Willow was coming out because she had had issues with Marina back in fucking November or whatever the fuck it was, and then was like, "Oh, I would help you, Orange Cassidy, with them, but I gotta go wrestle in Japan on a show that we can't fucking advertise." Um, so I just was like, "Why the fuck?" She couldn't help Orange other than that one time, and Copeland can take her out, but now Willow's going to show back up to help Swerve, who we've never seen them interact. And I don't know who's
There's
supposed to
nothing
be
else
the
for her, right?
babyface. Well, yeah, no, I know that,
There's
but I'm
nothing
just
else
saying,
for
like,
her.
it
And
doesn't
so
make sense narratively, because, like, is Swerve supposed to be a babyface or a heel? I know that I know personally, I believe that's a conditional thing. Like, it depends on what situation is. But, like, in Swerve versus Hangman, who's the babyface there? Because we had just seen that interaction, right?
Swerve and Hangman, I think, is like a unique situation where like the crowd decides who's the babyface and who's the heel, where they're both of those guys just playing their characters. In this situation, it's very much clear that Swerve is the babyface. In the promo, he kind of like the the key takeaway in this promo from Swerve was Jon Moxley. He used to be revered around here. He used to be someone who was looked up to. He'd be AEW World Champion before. We've seen him be cool. This version that we're seeing now is not fucking it. It's someone playing the character of Jon Moxley. So like, bring out the real you.
It
So
definitely felt
Swerve
like
is
an
in here as the
online.
babyface to try and wake this fucking guy up.
I agree. I agree. In this situation, Swerve is. I just think contextually in the overarching thing of the show, because we just in the previous segment that we had saw him take more of an aggressive role. But I agree overall with what you're saying. Um, I thought that was interesting, that promo, because to me it felt a little online from Swerve's end. You know what I mean? And or maybe that's just me reading into it because I see a lot of criticisms of Jon Moxley, and then I see a lot of people who say Jon Moxley's done a lot of great for the company, and Jon Moxley is great, and it's just the storyline's bad. And I am one of those people. I agree with that. I think John is a cornerstone of the company, and he was up. He hasn't had a good match in a very long time in AEW, but he for a very long time he was a highlight of the company. So I felt like Swerve was a little online with that. One thing that I did think was funny about this is Swerve, after Willow starts fighting with Marina, Swerve is standing on the turnbuckles, right? Like looking out at John and the crowd. Willow and Marina are fighting. Claudio gets involved and starts trying to like break it up and pull her away, right? Marina. And Swerve is just standing on the turnbuckles, staring off into the crowd. And I was like, bro, are you going to jump down there and like clock Claudio? and like you know what I mean, or like do something like why is Claudio like getting to be the one to bring up the situation? Then Nana starts getting involved. I was like, okay, so you have Nana and Claudio breaking up Marina and Willow as Swerve literally stands over them and stares. And I was like, this is just fucking awkward. I don't know. I was just very confused by it because I thought Swerve should at least have jumped down Claudio and then like I don't know maybe like pulled Willow away or you know what I mean, done something more than just stand there like an NPC as these people fought and his manager gets
The
involved.
reason for that might have been that because Swerve has a ruptured eardrum, he's not allowed to get physical or doesn't want to get physical anyway because it would, I don't know, hurt him. Like even like a pull apart, like maybe like a hand accidentally hits somewhere where it's not supposed to and it sets him back. Maybe that was the
Yeah,
reason for that, maybe.
yeah. Maybe when John fucking Mox stepped on his head last week, he actually and Swerve was selling his ear. Maybe he actually did hurt his ear a little bit. So and he wasn't cleared this time around. So that very well could be it because yeah, he didn't get physical at all. So that's a good rational reason as to why that wonkiness happened. But I thought I noticed that and I thought it was a little bit weird. Next we had the ops segment. What did you think about this one, Dougie? Well, I want to know your thoughts on this. All right, Air. What were your thoughts on the ops package?
I hate the ops because Samoa Joe is cool as fuck, Shibata is cool as fuck, and they're babysitting Hook on screen. Um, but for what it was, this segment made me laugh. I think Max Caster is doing a great job at his role. People who don't like, I know like Brian Alvarez is somebody who doesn't understand character work right now. He doesn't understand the point of like a goofy chant. But I think Max is doing a great job. So like, though I think Samoa Joe and Shibata should be doing something better, and they should be utilized better in AEW. This segment made me laugh, so I think it worked.
Um, I agree with everything you said about Max Caster. Um, he found a way to turn his natural dislikability from his online habits into an actual delusional heel, which so it works. So yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think he's doing better than I ever thought he would do. Because when they were breaking those two up, I was like, man, what the fuck are they gonna do? Because like Max Caster's underwater, like he's got go away heat with a big segment of the audience. So I don't know how they're gonna you know salvage this, but yeah, he's doing great. One thing I liked about the segment is they explained why there was no interviewer. They said Shibata took the camera. Shibata has commandeered the camera. So I did think the segment was a little NXT-ish, like black and gold-ish NXT, not modern NXT because I wouldn't know. Um, but yeah, so it was goofy. It wasn't horrible by any means because again, I just so I'm praising it at the fact that they explained why the camera wasn't there because a lot of times historically AEW has always had a reason for the camera to be present. They don't do they historically up until recently haven't done the invisible camera shit. Like there's always been an interviewer there or a reason why the camera was present backstage. So I appreciate them doing that because that's a WWE trope. I fucking hate that there's just a camera backstage anytime that there needs to be for the sake of the show. Um, so yeah, it worked. They had a
Right.
cool Dynasty video package. Oh, what were you saying?
No, keep going.
Oh, I was just gonna say there was a cool Dynasty video package after that, which was showing like the Chicago or not the Chicago, the Philadelphia skate park with all the graffiti on it. I didn't know if that was a nod that maybe Darby would be returning because I don't know anything about his mountain climb yet because it seems like it's been very silent on that end. But they were showing the skate park in that video package, so I forgot the name of the skate park, but it's actually featured in one of the Tony Hawk games. But so I didn't
Whatever
know if
the
that was.
song was in that video package, I wouldn't mind that song being like the Dynamite opening song.
Yeah, I thought that was a cool song too. I couldn't remember what it was off the top of my head, but I thought everything about that was really cool. And I was like, that's something that like you should have been showing because like it didn't show a bunch of clips of like people like the matches and stuff. You know what I mean? It just showed who was going to be on the pay per view, which is people who you knew were going to be on the pay per view anyway. So I don't see why you couldn't have produced this and like shown this earlier as like a highlight package to like get people hyped for Dynasty. But it was really cool. Then after that we
You
had
gotta know
Jay.
the card before you can put this video package together. And
But
AEW
you
is seemingly they should know, but like sometimes it seems like they don't, and things come together very last minute.
I agree. I don't disagree with all, but like you gotta know like Swerve's gonna be on the pay per view, right? Like like you had him as the number one contenders match on the previous pay per view, so like yeah, I agree. They put stuff together last minute, but there's a handful like you can show Mercedes. You can bet your ass Tony Storm's having a match. You know what I mean? Like there's
Mercedes might
just
not be
certain.
on the card at this point. Who does she wrestle at this point? Like if that's not set up,
There, we'll find out on Collision, brother, because it says
we'll find out on
Mercedes is in
Collision.
action, and Mercedes
Yes,
ain't on
sir.
Collision to have a squash match for no reason. So tune in, sickos. Collision storylines happening, making it an A show. Um,
Yep.
Next we had Jay White backstage. I was very perplexed by this whole interaction because Jay White announces that he's going to be in the Owen, and I didn't rewatch last week's segment of Jay White backstage, but I'm pretty sure he said he was going to be in the Owen last week. And if he didn't say he was going to be in the Owen, like outright state it, Osprey had already stated that he was going to be in the Owen because he said he wanted to main event fucking All In. And then I think Hangman might have already announced that he was going to be in the Owen at that point too. And then Jay White cuts his promo where he talks about meeting Osprey again and meeting the Cowboy. So when he cut that promo about meeting Osprey again, immediately after Osprey declares for the Owen, I naturally assume that he's declaring that he's in the Owen, even if he didn't say those words, which I don't remember if he did or not. So I was very confused about why we were doing this segment again. I was very
Jay
confused.
White's been doing a lot of stuff on screen that doesn't necessarily translate into what he actually does. Like last week, along with entering in the Owen, he also says that he was going to help Cope. He was going to make sure that this guy was leaving world champion. He couldn't get the job done, so he's going to try again. And he doesn't make an appearance in that the street fight between Mox and Cope last week. And so yeah, he says and does things, and nothing ever becomes of them.
It's a damn shame. I'm a massive Jay White fan, and I think there's so much you could do with him. You know, everyone, like, I hate to. I'm the first person like don't compare stuff to the Fed, but like, he's got this move that he literally hits out of nowhere. That's like, so. You can make that a whole fucking thing with this guy. He's supposed to be the smartest in the fucking game, right? But like, he we yeah, so I don't know what the fuck they're doing with him, and I'm disappointed with it, but I was very confused because it just felt like rehashing and treading ground from the previous week.
Yep. He's wrestling Kevin Knight on Collision for that. That'll be cool.
I'm very excited for that. I hope they sign Kevin Knight. I'm assuming he's already signed, because he got taken off that MLW show where he wasn't going to win the match. And I think every indie match he's been on so far, he's won. And normally when you get signed to WWE, they take you away from the indies. And he's been on ROH, I think, twice recently. So I have a feeling that maybe he's going to show up in AEW, and I hope he does because he's phenomenal.
Yep, agreed.
I have on my notes there that at this point in the show, it has been over 30 minutes of back-to-back segments. We have not talked about a wrestling match in quite some time. But yes, on the television show, I believe it was 30 minutes. I have 30 minutes. I have 34 minutes written down. I think it was like 30-something seconds, but I can't remember the exact. I just have 34 minutes.
Wow, okay.
Of
Yeah,
back-to-back segments.
after the Kenny match, there's a long time where there's no match, and then yes, another second match pause in the second half of the show as well.
Yeah. So there were 2 long ass breaks in this show with no fucking wrestling, and then I have it pulled up somewhere where I looked at the Dynamite from the previous year, and it was 5 matches. This episode was 6 matches, and each match on the last episode was like 8 minutes or longer. Some were almost 20. And there were like 3 4-star matches on this Dynamite this time last year. And I'm going to go ahead and say I don't think there were 3 4-star matches on this show at all. So I think there's been a dip in the quality of television wrestling lately. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Speaking of a dip in quality of wrestling, next we had a top flight squash match. Why? Other than to set them up to lose to Big Bill and Brian Keith on probably Collision. So you have Top Flight, who are now jobbers, unfortunately, losing to some other jobbers who are then going to do some jobs on some pay-per-views. And then during this match, it cut to Brian Keith and Big Bill 4 separate times backstage of them watching Top Flight in a squash match. And then after this, it shows Top Flight argue with Crew, despite Top Flight already losing in a match to Crew, and their feud starting back in December.
Yep.
It's March 28th.
Yeah, the team that should be wrestling, Crew. Like I checked, Leo Rush and Action and Dirty had wrestled one tag team match this year, and it was on January 4th, and they've not wrestled since. They've been at all the shows. They've been eating popcorn in the crowd. They've been doing something, but wrestling. And so, the team that ideally should be getting reps because they're good wrestlers. They're better than some of the other tag teams that are being featured recently. They're not. So, interesting choice there.
Yeah, I completely agree, because you know who could probably bump for Bobby and Shelton and make them look really good? Because we know that's, how Bobby and Shelton are getting by so far in AEW, is having other people feed for them and then bump for them. I can't think of 2 better people in the tag division to do that besides Austin Gunn and Colton Gunn, which we already saw. So I have no idea what we're doing with Crew. I wish they would push them, or at least let them have fucking matches on Ring of Honor or some shit. Because I think Leo Rush is great. I think he puts a lot of effort into his presentation. He advertises for himself. He tries to get reps on the indies. He worries about his gear, his music. And then I think Action Andretti, I think he's a very good wrestler, even though we don't see it very often because he doesn't get booked. But that's also, I've seen some of his indie stuff. I'm biased because I'm a moves guy, and he can do lots of flips. And I was there when he debuted against Jericho, and I thought that was like one of the coolest things AEW has like done, especially for television wrestling, was just the way they set up that match and that match in general. So I don't know. I just think there's more to get out of Action Andretti than what we've gotten so far. So yeah, I really want to see these guys fucking shine and get some matches and get a push. Like them versus Hologram and Commander should be a really good match when it happens.
Yep.
Next, we had a Will Ospreay video package, which I guess if you don't have your star on television this week, you do a video package saying he's going to return next week. And we're going to find out, I guess, who he's having a pay-per-view match with, because as of right now, I have no idea who he's wrestling on Dynasty. We know he's going to be in the Owen. I don't know when the Owen starts, but yeah, so I have no idea what Will Ospreay's direction is currently. And it's kind of odd considering, he carried Darby's fucking lifeless body away and told Darby he was going to help him fight the Death Riders after the fucking C2 was over. He had to finish the C2, bruv, because he was on a losing streak, bruv. And, he hasn't really fucking addressed the Death Riders at all. So, whatever. Next, we had a legitimately great match. The best match on the show. I would give it a 4-star, maybe a 4.25. Is Briscoe and Takeshita. What did you think of this match, bro?
I thought it was like I would agree. It's a very good match between two great wrestlers. It's what you expected. Yeah, it was just like a good match. Like nothing happened before it, nothing happened after it. It was just a solid match.
No bad finish. That's the type of match that Takeshita could have been having on television as international champion weekly, right? That's the type of match that everybody on this fucking show could have. Not everybody, because not everyone's that good, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, every match could be that great. And so they did the commercial break to the outside spot, because he hit a DDT to the onto the apron. They go to commercial break. There is a rest hold, and I for a brief second there, I was like, God damn it, is this match gonna suck? Did someone agent this match poorly? Like, we got Takeshita doing a fucking rest hold, and Taz and Don Callis are already going, and then they instantly, after another pin, this is during the commercial break, they pick back up, and they just start going at it and start having a great match. There's some cool shit on the outside after that rest hold. He did the Cactus Jack spot where he does the running flip and knocks Takeshita over. Then he did the run across the barricade and did the elbow drop to the thing, to the floor. I thought that looks great. He hits Takeshita with a J Driller. That J Driller was fucking nasty. Like, normally, they sit back pretty far, so it lands more on his ass and tailbone and your head doesn't touch. But man, that one, I don't know if it was camera angle or what, but it looked like it should have been the end of the match. And thankfully, Takeshita didn't kick out, and he put his foot on the rope to protect the J Driller. And there started to be a "This is awesome" chant at that moment. But then the match, or no, shortly after that, when we got close to the ending, because it seemed like Don Callis was going to interfere, but he didn't, and I'm glad. It was I have awesome match, excellent TV match. Don Callis and Taz were phenomenal. I can't remember what Taz was saying on commentary, but he was fucking hilarious in this, especially on commercial break. Yeah, this is what AEW should be. Like, this is what Dynamite should be, was this match right here. When I think of classic AEW wrestling, even though it may not be Briscoe and Takeshita because of the era, this is who I think about. Like, this type of match. We need more of this. After that was some Death Riders bullshit backstage. That motherfucker said, "Cope, you are the most sinister." He said that. He fucking said that shit. Wheeler Yuta did.
Yep.
What a goober. Man, I just can't. Like, I think Wheeler Yuta has some good matches sometimes too, but brother, I cannot take this guy seriously. Cope, you are the most sinister of them all. Fucking dweeb, dude. What the fuck? I thought Claudio was good. I like heel Claudio personally. I know some people have given some heel Claudio slander on the internet, particularly on X, the Everything app. But I think the motherfucker's good as a heel. I think he's doing some of the best work he's done in his history as in AEW. I like when he gets angry in his promo and he starts speaking in German. I think it's very intimidating. I like that. I thought Pac was really good in this, but this was an invisible camera thing. Like, why was there a camera back there with these guys? But whatever. I thought it was good, so I don't want to sound like a nitpicking. Then next, we got the Hurt Syndicate with Alyssa, whatever her name is, MJF's girlfriend. And then they excuse her from the interview. And they're like, Bobby Lashley is like, so you like him? Talking about MJF to MVP. And he says this after acknowledging the fact that he goes, I turned on the TV and I saw you with MJF giving him a card. And then he asks, so you like him? It's like, motherfucker, you just acknowledged you saw him give him a card. What the fuck you mean? Asking a stupid ass question. God damn. This is a WWE ass segment. I thought it sucked. I don't know if you have a differing thought.
Yeah. They've been doing the invisible camera thing a lot more, but they set it up with here's the interviewer, but they don't actually give an interview.
Yeah.
So then they still do the invisible camera thing, and that was one of those.
I don't know if you've noticed what talent it normally that normally happens with, but there's a particular segment of the roster who this happens with. It doesn't happen with people who have historically been on Dynamite for their whole career. But if you come from another wrestling company, there seems to be a lot of invisible camera segments for you, particularly with Mercedes. This shit happens all the time with Mercedes. And at least I appreciate them explaining it away with Alyssa. And I'm sure they only did that because they just did the Death Riders one, where they had the invisible camera segment. But Mercedes, they do this shit awful all the time with fucking her. And sometimes with Mercedes, they'll show Mercedes enter the building and like have her walking with her titles, and then she walks past a corner, and then that's where Renee is to like explain why the camera's there. It's like they're well aware that Tony knows that like people hate the invisible camera thing, and he's talked about it in interviews when AEW was first starting. And it seems like whoever's producing some of these segments, maybe doesn't know that or doesn't feel the same way about invisible camera segments, and so they're trying to have their cake and eat it too with these segments where it's like, well, we'll meet you in the middle, we'll put the interviewer there, and then we'll just excuse them. And yeah. Also, something to think about at this point, if you've been in the building, think about how many backstage segments we've talked about so far. How many times is this crowd looking over the fucking Tron and not being able to hear what the fuck is said? Because we've all been to wrestling events and heard what those backstage segments sound like in the building, and you can't hear a fucking thing. I don't know why they can't do more of these in front of the crowd. So, Dougie? I want to know your thoughts specifically on the Thunder Tits versus Megan Bayne Penelope Ford match.
Seems like Bane is getting the super push. I'm always pleasantly surprised how good Penelope Ford is, because I don't remember her being really solid in the ring, but since she's come back, she's been very, let's say competent, bordering on good. So, like, use the term, she's a good hand. She's definitely that. Not exactly sure why they're a thing in terms of a tag. They never really told us, but they are.
Joey Janela's ex-girlfriend with his current girlfriend.
Yeah. Joey Janela lore.
Yeah.
Match is fine. Thunder tits, I guess. I mean, I don't. Thunder Rosa was trying really hard to get that over. She kept saying it in the match, like she said, like 4 or 5 times.
And to her credit, it did get over because the crowd did chant it. They were chanting Thunder Tits. The surprising thing, the most surprising thing about this match was the finish. And I'm shocked that Megan Bayne pinned Toni Storm on TV because usually the person that gets the pin on TV doesn't get the pin on pay-per-view. And so, do they have Toni Storm retain? Are they gonna stop Megan Bayne's push before it, like it should like naturally climax? Like she should be beating Toni Storm if you're gonna have the Rock under her.
Yeah, no,
And if should she not win, what do you do?
it definitely felt a little weird that I mean, and this is where we're all conditioned to WWE booking, right? To being like, oh, Megan Bayne pinned Tony, and I mean they put it over on commentary too. They were like shocked.
Yeah, like I understand that Toni Storm is one of your biggest stars. She's over as fuck. So like, you want to keep her champion, but then if you're giving Megan this big fucking push and you have her lose her first title match, then it kind of sets her back. And so it's odd from a decision making standpoint because there are different finishes you could have gone with. You could have pinned Thunder. You could have pinned Penelope. You could have gone any number of ways. You had Megan get the pin on the champion. So interesting decision there.
Yeah, I actually. So I may have a hot take on this, but I thought this match up until the last bit, up until there was a point where Excalibur got confused on who was legal and who wasn't, right? But I thought up until that moment, I thought the match was really good. And I know earlier I just said I hate these random fucking tag matches because like the people had no chemistry, but I thought Tony and Thunder had pretty good chemistry, and I thought this was a little bit weird because when they came out, they did the kiss on the cheek, the Hollywood, like the old timey kiss on the cheek, like hello thing, and I was like, weren't you two just arguing backstage, like, and talking about like taking her title away? And then they had great chemistry and didn't have any problems in the match, which I'm glad. I would rather than have fucking done that than do the like bickering and that leading to the finish. I thought Thunder Rosa was really good in the match. Like I thought this was the best Thunder Rosa. I like the past couple of weeks. I feel like that this is the best Thunder Rosa has looked since she came back from her back injury. Like I thought Thunder Rosa carried this fucking match. If I can be 100% honest with you, I thought she did a great job with Megan Bayne last week, and I thought it's Tony was on the spent most time on holding the rope. So yeah, I thought Thunder's selling was great. I thought Thunder was hitting hard. Thought she looked good until I got confused of who was in the match, and Tony was in there, and Megan Bayne was in there, which kind of made me a little bit iffy on their actual pay-per-view match. But we'll see what happens. But I also thought, to what you were saying, Dougie, I didn't remember Penelope Ford being this good prior to her injury and going away, or miscarriage, or whatever it was. I can't remember. But whatever the situation that took her away from TV for quite some time was, I did not remember her being this good. She's very good, and she's somebody who, in my mind, I was like, man, she should get some indie reps, like on some weekends where she's not on TV, or they should put her on Ring of Honor more, just to let her get some reps, because we've seen a lot of wrestlers who were pretty good, or at least competent, do the Rampage loop or some indie shows, or work Ring of Honor a lot, like your Commanders, your Sky Blues, or people like that, who like drastically improved in the ring. And like, if Penelope is this good coming back from her injury, like, maybe you could do more than her with her than having her be the lackey jobber. But yeah, I agree. The finish was weird, or not, or it was a choice.
You can't really, as talented as the women's roster is, there's not much more in the role that she's currently in. Like, there's 3 wrestlers who should be pushed in this division that aren't, simply because the only stories that you tell on television are ones who do around titles. So you can't push Jamie, you can't push Willow, and you can't push Statlander because they're not going to be going for the TBS title or the World Championship. So they're off doing bullshit. And so Penelope Ford, even if she does improve, the ceiling is a title match on TV. Lose that, go back to whatever you're doing.
I don't disagree, but I think that the mid card in AEW should be booked better, in the fact that mid card wrestlers should face each other and they should get wins against each other. Like, there's no reason why Penelope Ford can't wrestle a Sky Blue and get a match win over her occasionally to like build her up for like a pay per view match, or like to enter her in the women's ON, or potentially have her in the women's C2 next year and get like a win or two. So I don't disagree with what you're saying, and I agree with you that she's not a Willow, she's not a Stat. There are women who have much higher ceilings than a Penelope Ford does. But if we're talking about a good hand and someone who you can have a good match with, as of right now, I think Penelope Ford is someone who you can slot into that role. Eventually, maybe you do have her win the TBS title for a couple, for a month or two, and then lose it to somebody as a transitional champion. So I think that's a good. I think we need more women in that role, and we need more wrestlers in that role in AEW, right? Because that's one of the problems. Is like, no one knows how good Blake Christian is. No one knows how good Nick Wayne is. Commander's a fucking jobber. Beast Mortos is a jobber, and all these people were for different reasons, right? Narratively, from storytelling standpoints, but there's a lot of people in AEW that, like, if they did more mid card matches, you could highlight and they could at least get wins on stuff. Because I mean, we do have mid card belts. We have a fucking TNT title that doesn't get defended. You know what I mean? Like, if they're like Brody and Fletcher, you said what, 18 minutes, right? Let it go 12 or 14 minutes, then let lob 2 minutes off Takeshita and Briscoe, and then take a minute off this match, and then give a mid card match to Nick Wayne and somebody. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why you can't do more of that on the show. And I think Penelope Ford is someone who would, and that's one of the losses of Rampage, right? As we don't. This is something that you could have done on Rampage that now you can't because it's gone. So, yeah, maybe make some shorter television matches occasionally. Not everything needs to go 8 minutes or through a double ad break, and let us get some, decent mid card matches. Or when you book a mid card match like Top Flight, maybe have them wrestle a fucking another tag team that actually exists, not some fucking local jobbers, because I think that's a waste of just fucking television time.
Yeah, it's high time that AEW books the women a lot more seriously. Like, not only in mid cards, but like, I think women specifically. Like, 2 women's matches a week is insufficient. 2 women's matches and a random squash match, that's insufficient. They've been the highlight of your roster. Every opportunity that they've got this year, from like a wrestling standpoint, they've knocked it out of the park. In my opinion, the current match of the year is a women's match. The best story in AEW for this year was a women's story. So, like, you're the highlight. You have a roster in place. You mentioned a women's C2. That would require you to book what, 4 to 6 women's matches a week. So, like, there's a lot of like legwork to do before you get to that point. And you also mentioned the Owen. 3 men entrants for the Owen, nothing for the women. So a lot of work to do there.
I couldn't agree more. Um, I'm gonna take the Tony Khan defender stance on this one and say, um, historically, a lot of times when I watch Ring of Honor, there's a lot of female presence on that show. It doesn't seem to cross over onto AEW. Historically, Rampage was taped, and there'd always be one or two women's matches on Rampage. So if you were there in the building, which a lot of people don't take into account, there was actually quite a bit of women's wrestling on the show. Definitely more than a WWE show, but it didn't come off that way on television because of the way the show was broken up. But I do agree that they could do a lot more with their women, particularly because I do agree that the best story of the year, yeah, probably was Mariah and Tony. I definitely agree that my favorite match of the year was Mariah and Tony Hollywood ending match. Thought that was phenomenal. So I agree with you on that one. And we haven't gotten any of the women announcing for the Owen, but again, that's because they're wrapped up in this fucking women's storyline for the title because they don't book anything outside of the title, and if that's the way they're gonna book, unfortunately, which you made that comment about Will Washington, like don't they have a continuity guy? Doesn't AEW have a fucking women's creative person?
You have a Mercedes creative person who occasionally um talks about other women on the show sometimes.
Okay, because you would think that like you would use her to do more of the women's storylines. Not that I want that because I think Jim Pepperman's contributions to the show are utter garbage. But my point being is like, hey, if because she has a pretty, if I remember, she has like an executive title, like as far as like what she does in the company. Like she's like an executive producer of creative or some shit like that, or like a vice president of creative. Like she has a very high ranking title. And so sometimes when I see some of these women's matches, I'm like, yo, you got this person there that their whole job is to do a woman stuff or women adjacent stuff, and like you're doing women feuds based on people bumping into each other backstage, or like your feuds have no build, or like we don't know why Megan Bain and Penelope Ford are tagging together, right? We don't really know why Thunder Rosa and Tony are tagging together, other than enemy of my enemy is my friend, even though historically they're enemies, to the point where you even acknowledge that before the match. So that doesn't make any fucking sense. But my point where I was trying to go here is I don't think Tony Khan's necessarily to blame here. I think a lot of the blame does rely on AEW fans because every time I go to an AEW show, and I've been to a lot, women matches get used as the bathroom and drink break. You know what I mean? And me and you, we've all seen the women, the WrestleNomics ratings. A lot of times the women they dip. And so I blame a lot of the AEW fans. I think a lot of you hear a lot of the uproar online for, hey, we want to support women's wrestling. There needs to be more of it. But, unfortunately, Tony doesn't see the data that agrees with it. So what does he do? He packs his women wrestling on a show that like is behind a paywall that he doesn't have to worry about whatever the fuck he does on. So I think that is partial to blame for it too, and I think about a lot of it is this is a storyline company now, and if he doesn't have a narrative reason to book people in something, they're not going to be booked, and they're not going to win any matches. So on that note, I would also probably suggest that at this point, I know a lot of people would say not to do this, but maybe introduce the women's tag titles if this is how you're going to have to book like to get women on television. You are starting to build enough women to where you can have tag matches with them, right? Because we've got Megan Bain and Penelope Ford. We have Willow and Stat. It seems like. Who else? Historically, we would have Julia in Sky Blue when they're both ready. you know, there are some other women that you could put together, right? So I wouldn't be against the idea of when I know they're already made, or I've heard anyway. Obviously, I don't know firsthand, but I wouldn't be against it if they did it to get more women's matches on television.
Women's tag titles appear, you wouldn't get more women's matches on television. You just get a women's tag title match on television instead of a women's singles match.
It depends on who's holding the belts. As long as Tony and Mercedes are holding the belts, I would disagree with you on that. I think he would have to force the women's tag belts because I don't think he's giving up time for Mercedes and Tony, because they actually are, quote unquote stars. So,
But look at the men's division. How many belts do you have there? How many times do you see the trios titles defended? How many times do you see the tag titles defended? TNT International. You have all these belts.
yeah, no,
All
no.
these people holding those belts.
What would more than likely what would happen is the tag belts wouldn't get defended. That would be the most likely outcome. I agree with you, but I'm just saying, like, if it comes down to it, like, fuck it, like, because that's how he books. If that, I hate it personally. I fucking hate it. I wish we had rankings back. I wish, people. I wish matches meant something, because if you have rankings, it forces mid card matches. A lot of people will be like, well, they padded the rankings on Dark. And it's like, yeah, they fucking did. But, mid card people still had matches for the number one contendership spot on television. Like, people still did have to beat people to, like, move up. Like, there still was that type of mobility on the show. And it did lead to natural story progressions where, like, these people had to wrestle for no fucking reason other than, like, oh, well, I need to wrestle you because you're sitting here in the rankings and I'm sitting here and we need to move forward. And then, sometimes that led to things called stories that certain fans really, really like. And then you might get realistic stories built on competition other than, Harley Cameron wearing a lucha mask and Beast Mortos being transfixed by her shaking her hips for some reason.
Yeah, no, absolutely agreed. Again, it sucks that Rampage as a show is gone, but then I suppose like Collision is that one show that you could use as like a experimental show to do these things. Like you were talking about like ratings and data and analytics and things. There's been plenty of shows this year that women have main evented on TV. And so if that's the data that you look at to book these women in the future, then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because you stick them in the death slot. Because we know that AEW shows lose viewers all throughout. But though something like a Dynamite main event sounds good, or here, big example, right? Mariah, Tony, they didn't get to main event Revolution, and Tony Khan, when asked about it, said, "Hey, they got to main event a big show in Australia." Okay, fine, they main event in Australia, but that match comes on at like 12:30, 12:45 a.m.
Right.
the East Coast. So you're setting them up for failure. You're giving them this slot, but you're giving them that slot not because they deserve it, but because you want the things that will get more people watching earlier in the show. You put Kenny earlier. You put Cope and Mercedes earlier.
Right,
so,
right. The real main event on a show that goes on that late is actually the first match, because that was the thing with Rampage, right? Like, they would actually main event Rampage with the first. No, what would be the main event of the live show? Generally, would be the opening match of Rampage.
Right. Yep.
No, I agree. And if there was ever a time to fuck around with your stuff, it would be right now, because they just signed a big television deal, and you had Andrew Zarian say that Time Warner's not super worried about a rating here and there. So maybe that's kind of with generally being a ceiling on Collision since it's on a Saturday at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock, depending on where you're at or whatever time it is. Most normal people are not watching wrestling at home. They're doing something with their life. So, they don't expect super high ratings. So if you were going to fuck around with a television show in the format of stuff, that's the place. Or even more crazy thought here, you have this show called Ring of Honor that really costs you no money to produce. And I don't know if you've ever watched it recently, but there's a lot of fucking there's a lot of local talent on there, squash matches. And you know what, Tony? Like, if you have nothing to do with, let's say Anna Jay and Queen Aminata, maybe have some matches on Ring of Honor. Maybe don't have fucking don't have Aminata versus Jasmine Allure. And that's not saying I don't like Jasmine Allure, but she's not signed to the roster. And you have lots of women who are signed to the roster who you could maybe have matches with, right? Because I think that's going to be one of their whole problems is they're going to try to make Athena a big deal when she comes over here soon, and Athena's a big deal to the locked in sickos who are on the internet. But if you just watch AEW television and you're not on the internet, you saw Athena for 3 weeks in 2022, then you saw her get squashed by a Jade, and then you've seen her on 2 pre-shows since then. You know what I mean? Why the fuck does she matter? So they got some legwork to do.
Ring
yeah.
of Honor can be a discussion of its own in terms of how it's being used and how it could be used much, 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 much better.
Yeah, you could make Ring of Honor just the sicko show, right? Where you just put bangers on with all your people who you're not using on TV, and you use your young people like Nick Wayne to have matches against I don't know, Beast Mortos, and you have Beast Mortos beat him on fucking Ring of Honor, and then it just be a thing where you tell a story about how this kid's fucking 20 years old and he's new to the game, and Beast Mortos is a good wrestler, and you can have Beast Mortos win matches because they don't matter because it's Ring of Honor. You know what I mean? It's crazy to me because I would just make Ring of Honor the initial vision of what Tony Khan's AEW was supposed to be, or I'd make it more like the initial version of Ring of Honor. But now it's a super fucking fed-pilled version of Ring of Honor, and it fucking sucks. And everyone's like, well, it should be developmental, and it's yeah, it should be developmental if your fucking young wrestlers are actually going to wrestle people. But what ends up happening is you have Rachel Ellering wrestling a fucking local talent, and it's they're never going to do anything with Rachel Ellering. What the fuck are we doing here? You have Diamante wrestling Layla Hirsch, right, on a pay-per-view, and then we're just going to let Layla Hirsch go. I don't know, maybe use that for your other people who you're going to keep, who you've got nothing to do with right now. Crazy thought. Maybe people might buy some subs too. I don't know. That's a crazy thing to think about too. How they're probably going to do Mercedes and Athena on the Ring of Honor pay-per-view, which I think is a smart idea. Doesn't cost you anything. Move some fucking tickets. Move some subs. People will do a spontaneous buy of a $10 thing for a month, and then guess what? If it's got good matches on it every week, all up and down the show, they might continue to watch it. Because a lot of people just want to watch fucking wrestling.
Yeah.
More than that, I think last year the person who wrestled the most matches in AEW was Orange Cassidy with 60 odd, and the next highest was 40 something. So there's a lot of people on your roster who don't wrestle enough. You pay them to wrestle, they don't wrestle. They're not improving because they're not wrestling. Some of them are developing ring rust because they're not wrestling on a weekly basis. Like we mentioned Nick Wayne earlier. There are people who could easily be wrestling just to improve, to get better, to hone their craft so that when they are on TV, they're the best version of themselves. But yeah, this is a much longer discussion that we could have like separate to
Yeah,
anything else that we talk about.
Totally. Yeah, we'll just stick to the end of the Dynamite review that we wrapped up here, since we're already pretty deep into the thing here. But yeah, I feel like that was a pretty in depth Dynamite review. Overall, I would give it probably a 6 or a 6.5 on the scale. I think the first half of the first hour and 20 minutes of the show sucked, or wasn't great. You know, the Kenny match, personally, I would have liked it to be a little bit better. But I didn't like any of the segments. It's too segment heavy. But I thought the final two matches on the show were great and good, and there was way too much fucking talking. Two, like we pointed out, there were two spans of more than 30 minutes where no wrestling happened, and that's some SmackDown bullshit.
Yeah, I'd probably give it a 6 as well. A lot of segment heavy. The matches were all pretty, pretty good. As you said, the last two matches were really good. Little like a little more focus on the in ring. There were almost like three, what you could say, squashes. Two extended squash, well, three kind of extended squashes of the 5 matches, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, I would say there were two outright squash matches and one extended squash.
But yeah, I'd probably give it like a 6 because the in ring was pretty good in terms of like the women's match, Takeshita and Briscoe. The actual non picture in picture parts of Fletcher and Brody. So, you know. I didn't really speak about the Swerve fumbling the first part of the promo. Um, but he did recover nicely in the second part of his promo.
Yeah,
So,
he did. Yeah, and I forgot to mention that as well too. Swerve, historically, sometimes he does fumble a little bit in his promos. He always ends up picking it up, right? Like Swerve's got the aura and he's got the skill to recover, but sometimes he does fumble, and that's not to say anything negative, because even Christian Cage, who we all agree is a great character, fucks up, and he fucks up regularly. But he's just got the quiet while I'm conducting my business to cover up when he fucks up, because he's normally getting booed.
yeah. I just thought it was hilarious. Like, because he totally couldn't recover. Like, he even tried to, repeat it and even fumbled that part when he was trying to repeat what he said. But, as you said, it's about the aura with him. So I did like that they had him be a smart face instead of a dumb baby face. Like he was ready for everything that Mox was trying. Yeah, I'd probably give it like a 6.
There was one point where Swerve tried to see the "Whose House" chant, or to try to get them to chant "Whose House" a bunch, and they didn't do it. It was near the beginning, but then he wrapped back around to it, and he got a big one. I laughed about that. But yeah, 6. What are your final thoughts there?
There was nothing on the show that was great. There was nothing on the show that was bad. So I think 6 is a fair rating.
What would you give Briscoe versus Takeshita on a star rating scale?
I'm rating maybe like a 3.75.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was the best match on the show. Yeah, nothing stand out. Nothing like I won't go out of my way to rewatch this match. Put it that way.
Agreed. Yeah, this is definitely in the pantheon of Dynamite. It's not one that we will. It's not like the Dynamite that has Pac versus fucking Omega on it, right? Or the Dynamite with the Hangman and Omega versus Lucha Bros, or the Dynamite with Darby versus Takeshita. None of these matches will go down as anything. I feel like Takeshita and Briscoe will be remembered as a good match for their next showing, right? But you know, yeah, we're all in agreement here. But thank you everyone for giving us a listen. Go ahead and have a nice night.